While I was in the middle of recovering from burnout, my partner Andre had just left his full-time job. For 3 months, neither of us knew what came next. So we decided to build his counselling practice from scratch. The brand, the website, and even the room. In my last video, I share a little bit about my year in review of YouTube and what this last year of creating has meant to me. And putting that together actually made me think about this project because it happened during the same time of rebuilding. It was one of the first times I actually found myself properly designing again, but in a very different way. And this is probably a good time to introduce my partner Andre. Andre left his full-time role to start his own counselling practice. For around 3 months, he was unemployed while we prepared to launch his business. At the same time, I was recovering from burnout and rebuilding my own health. It felt like we were both standing at the beginning of a completely new chapter, without really knowing where it was going to lead. One thing that we could control was the brand and the environment. It wasn't just about getting the business up and running. We really wanted to create an authentic feeling, and that when people engaged in his service, they felt like they had already met him. Before we designed anything, we had to understand what we wanted people to feel. I started with 3 mood boards to work out what the practice should feel like before thinking too much about the final brand. Across those directions, we kept coming back to something natural, calm, warm, and human rather than overly clinical. Weleda became a strong influence, particularly its organic typography, natural colours, and the softer visual language. Andre's Steiner education also fed into that, especially the idea around nature, holistic well-being, and human development. There was a nice crossover with my own art practice too, including the Steiner influenced pencils I've been using in my garden drawings. Our garden naturally became part of the brand through the colour palette, while my sketchbook practice influenced these soft watercolour crystal-like shapes that I have grouped together almost like different parts of self, all able to exist, be acknowledged, and have a place in the room. Once we found that feeling, the next step was working out how someone could actually experience it. Once the visual direction was established, the brand needed to become something people could actually experience rather than just see. The website was the first extension of that, with Andre writing the words himself so it felt like him and reflected how he wanted to work with people. Andre looked at a number of spaces around Wellington before finding a room in Brammer House, a Category 2 historical building completed around 1924 to 25 during a period of major growth and change in Wellington. A lot of the original character is still there, including the mosaic flooring, timber joinery, and the beautiful old lift with its cage, which gives the journey into the practice its own sense of place. The building already had warmth and history, so rather than fighting that, we wanted the room to feel like it naturally belonged within it. We needed to furniture the space affordably, so we mixed second-hand pieces, things from home, and a few inexpensive items rather than creating a polished fit-out from scratch. The counselling chairs were probably the most important purchase. They needed to feel comfortable, generous, and suitable for different bodies because that's where most of the conversation happens. From there, we built softness into the room through curtains, plants, crystals, lighting, textures, and some of our own belongings from home. Small details like cookie jars and tea and coffee were intentional too, little moments of comfort before the counselling conversation even begins. Andre also keeps a small collection of sensory items nearby, some bought, some found in nature, like pine cones with rough texture and interesting sounds, giving people something tactile to hold on to or focus on if that helped them feel grounded. We found these beautiful watercolour paintings in an op shop by a local artist, Sylvia Meek. I later found out she was a recognised Hutt Valley watercolour artist, which made the find feel even more special. They have this softness to them, where you can almost stare into them and let your mind wander. Every decision was trying to reinforce the same feeling as the brand: calm, grounded, approachable, and safe. 6 months later, it's interesting to look at what all those small decisions have helped create. Looking back, this became much more than a branding project. It was something we both built together at a point when our lives were changing quite dramatically. While I was recovering from burnout, Andre was stepping away from the security of full-time employment and trying to build something completely on his own. The brand helped to give that new direction a shape, something that felt considered, trustworthy, and generally reflected who Andre is. And 6 months later, seeing the practice steadily grow has been tremendously rewarding because it represents something we both took a real risk on. I think there's something quite courageous in both of us beginning to step outside the corporate worlds we had both known for so long. It has created a different type of freedom, not necessarily an easier life, but one where there is more ownership over how we work and what we build. I find it incredibly inspiring watching Andre create a practice that he can genuinely be proud of. And I think it's something we feel both proud of because of what it took to get here. For me, it has also changed how I think about creative work. The meaningful projects are not always the biggest and most impressive ones. Sometimes they're the projects that help us move forward, help us break old patterns and create new space for something different. And I think this little business has ended up representing a much bigger shift in direction in both our lives.